Hello, my name is Morty, and I'm here to talk about the books that I want to read in 2021. Now, I know these things are usually done in January, but I thought it was a good introduction to who I am, what I read, and also time is fake anyway. So, without further ado, these books aren't really in any order, but I do want to start with a series that you're probably already familiar with. So, to begin my list, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is an interesting one because technically I have actually already read the first book. I got it from the library and I had 2 weeks to read it, so I just went ahead and read it. But I have a lot of opinions about it. Opinions that made me rate it 3 stars, but also really want to continue reading the series. And I know it's really divisive in general and on BookTube especially, so I figured that, hey, why not add my opinion to the fray, right? So that entire series is just kind of on the list. Next is The Coffee Trader by David Liss. This is a book about a Jewish merchant trying to establish the European coffee trade in the 17th century in Amsterdam. It has politics, it has backstabbing, it has some Jewish history, all things that I'm very excited about. And especially exciting about this book in particular is it's actually one of the books that Leigh Bardugo cited as helping her write and inspiring her to write Six of Crows. So really excited to get inspiration from the same sources as one of my favorite authors. Continuing the trend of backstabbing politics and historical fiction is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. There's not a real reason that I want to read War and Peace at this point, except that it's a book that I've wanted to read for a long time, and I haven't yet. So I figure now is the time, 2021, we're gonna read War and Peace. Or at least we're gonna start War and Peace. We'll see how that goes, but I'm excited to chronicle that journey on YouTube. Next on the list is a book called The Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. It's about a creature called a gumiho, which is a fox spirit that generally takes the form of a woman who feed on men. And this is a young adult romance book about a gumiho who is kind of trying to figure out if that's really what she wants to do and grappling with this part of her identity. It's steeped in Korean folklore, which is not something I know a lot about, but I'm very excited to learn about, and it just looks like a lot of fun. Another YA book on my list is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. This book is set in an Arabic fantasy setting. It's got a girl disguising herself as a guy, it's got a prince of death, it's got a war, all things very excited about. Fantasy YA, super up my alley, and there's a new book coming out in the series this year, so people are talking about it, so very excited about that one. Next is one of the only books that I have a physical copy of, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I know 3 things about this book. I know that it's giant, I know that it has lesbians in it, and I know that I own it. And it's been on my shelf for a while, so this is another one, kind of like War and Peace, where it's a big book that I've made a lot of excuses for not reading, and I would like to stop making those excuses. So, Priory of the Orange Tree. The other book that I have an actual physical copy of is called Unscrolled. Here it is. Which is a compilation that's edited by Roger Bennett. This book was actually published by a company called Reboot, which I have worked for. The Reboot is an organization that tries to bring Jewish people into contact with their Judaism, and especially help them find Judaism, Jewish thought, religion, all of that sort of stuff when they didn't necessarily grow up with it. It's a really great organization. I love their message, and they helped publish this book. This book offers commentary on those tractates, each one by a different author. I've read some of them, and some of them I agree with, and some of them I don't. But all of them bring up really interesting questions, and I would like to actually commit to reading all of them, and maybe also the Torah portions that they're commenting on. If that's something that you're particularly interested, I'm happy to do that through vlogs and videos. If not, I don't blame you. I know religious study is not the sexiest of topics, but my goal here is to read this book in full this year. Next in the list is The Steel Crow Saga by Paul Kruger. This is an Asian-inspired adult fantasy book, and I've heard it described as superhero-esque and also queer. Those are all things I love. I'm especially excited about the intersection of fantasy, superhero, and adult as a genre. So really excited to see how this one goes. Next is a book that's been on my shelf for 6 years at this point. I know. Which is called Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And this is a book about a theater troupe in the beginning days of the apocalypse. In particular, it's a Shakespearean troupe that is basically trying to preserve these plays and bring art to people as a pandemic is starting to destroy the world. Because of the pandemic aspect, this one might take me a little while to get through. It was recommended to me when I was going through my zombie phase. And now we're dealing with a very different sort of apocalyptic pandemic situation. So I'm really excited to read it, but this one might take a while. Luckily, this one is not a library book, so I can take my time with it. And last but certainly not least, we have Black Wings Beating by Alex London. Now, I'll admit, I actually don't know a lot about this book, and its summary is not the reason that it's here. Alex London wrote a book called Proxy, which is actually a whole series, which is a young adult book about a cyberpunk dystopia where a boy who lives in a society that regularly enslaves people starts talking to one of those slaves and realizes, hey, maybe this isn't something that I want to be a part of. The thing that makes this book special to me is that this book is the first time that I have ever read a gay romance, essentially. The main character is gay, and him realizing that he's in love with another character is a major part of the book. Similarly, it's the only fantasy book that I've read that has centered Judaism as a part of its main, not only plot, but ethical construct. I can talk about that more in another video, but it's part of what inspired me to go on my own Jewish journey. I don't know if Black Wings Beating has any Judaism or Jewish thought in it. And obviously it's fine with me if it doesn't. I'm pretty sure that it does have a gay protagonist, but I'm really excited to read another book by Alex London. So super excited about that one. And that's the list. Let me know what your 2021 TBRs look like, if you've read any of these books, if you have any particular thoughts about them, or just come say hi. Bye!